History repeats itself, first as a tragedy, second as a farce. This quote, spoken by German philosopher Karl Marx, accurately depicts the notion demonstrated in Arthur Miller's play The Crucible. At a time where Americans were paranoid about communism, Miller wrote the play to protest against oppression of free speech and to warn people of the horrors that hysteria and guilt by association can cause. He dramatized the historical event of the Salem witch trials to show Americans what may become of their nation if they continue to support McCarthyism rather than seeking the truth. The witch trials were caused by the same intolerance found in the 1950s in McCarthyism and the accusations of communism. The actual event of the Salem witch trials occurred in colonial Massachusetts between 1692 and 1693 during the war between England and France and the American colonies. The war added starvation and the lack of resources to the list of problems to already poor colonies. The supernatural beliefs were common in this time, and a popular belief was that the devil had the ability to give people witches' powers to cause harm to others. After a smallpox outbreak, and with the knowledge of Native Americans living in the forests around their homes, the people of Salem were fearful. This fear began to increase and became so severe that they became completely paranoid and began to fear any differences of others. Reverend Samuel Parris was just established as the first ordained minister at the time of the event. He had a daughter, Elizabeth, who was 9 years old, and a niece, Abigail Williams, who was 11. They began to have fits, which resulted in severe rage, hallucinations, and muscle spasms. William Griggs, the local physician who assessed them, could not find a source of their symptoms and blamed it on the supernatural. Mercy Lewis, Mary Warren, and other girls were also victims of these strange symptoms. The magistrates Jonathan Corwin and John Hathorne came to investigate this strange occurrence. The girls were questioned under pressure, and they blamed 3 women for bewitching them. The 3 women were Tituba, which was Parris's Caribbean slave, Sarah Good, who was a homeless beggar, and Sarah Osborne, who was a poor elderly woman. Officials wanted to interrogate these women, and that was when the witch trials began. On March 1st, 1692, 3 women were interrogated, which included being stripped and examined for witches' marks in front of an entire court. Osborne and Good pleaded their innocence, but Tituba confessed that the devil made her do it, and she told them that there were other witches in Salem that were after Puritans. The 3 women were then put in jail. Paranoia spread like wildfire, and innocent people were repeatedly accused. The citizens of Salem felt they could trust no one, and their paranoia extended so far as to questioning Sarah Good's 4-year-old daughter and taking all her childish remarks as serious confessions. The paranoia went out of control, and innocent people confessed so they would not be hanged. On May 29th, William Phipps established the Court of Oyer and Terminer. Bridget Bishop was the first to be found guilty of witchcraft and was hanged. Cotton and Increase Mather disagreed with using spectral evidence, which is the evidence of dreams and visions, in the court to determine if a person is guilty or not. Increase Mather said, "It would be better that 10 suspected witches may escape than 1 innocent person to be condemned." The Superior Court of Judicature took over soon after. This court was much more successful, and less people were killed. However, 56 people were still convicted of witchcraft. Phipps eventually pardoned the accused, but this was not until 14 months after the trials began. After the trials finished, hysteria was diminished and common sense returned to Salem. Officials confessed publicly to the guilt of their role in the trials. On the 14th of January, 1697, General Court ordered a day of fasting and soul-searching to remember those who lost their lives in the trials of Salem. In 1711, a bill was passed to restore good name to all those who were accused. Restitution was paid to the surviving members of the victims of the trials. One theory that explains the strange symptoms that caused people to believe that the girls were bewitched is a study published in a journal called Science in 1976. This study blamed the fungus ergot for symptoms experienced by the girls who people believed were possessed. This fungus causes muscle spasms, vomiting, delusions, and similar symptoms to what the girls experienced. This fungus grows well in warm, swampy areas, which are similar to the areas found around Salem. It is also found in rye, which was a staple food in the town of Salem. The symptoms tend to be more severe in smaller people, which explains why only the girls were affected by the fungus. It is likely that they either consumed the fungus when they were eating, or that they encountered it when they were playing in the meadow. Arthur Miller dramatizes real historical events and accurately recounts what happened in 1692. Many actual characters were used in the play, but some names and ages have been changed for the purpose of theatrical performance. Miller disagrees with McCarthyism and brought up political errors of the past in his play to make a statement against the House Un-American Activities Committee's labeling of unpatriotic people as communists. He wrote in the play that the Judge Danforth. He wrote in the play Judge Danforth saying that a person is either with this court or he must be counted against it. There is no road between. This is also a parallel to the beliefs that people would have had at the time of McCarthyism in the 1950s. The Salem witch trials represent America's dark days dominated by intolerance, hysteria, and reputation. Fear and guilt by association were the driving forces of people's grave mistakes which repeated during Arthur Miller's time. The Crucible parallels the paranoia of the 1950s and demonstrates how history has a tendency to repeat itself when people refuse to seek the truth and let their intolerance guide their actions. Thank you.